Welcome to the Quiet Strength Podcast, Fathers in a Failing World. I'm Giacomo Knox. We live in a time when the role of fathers is often misunderstood, sometimes ignored, and occasionally even ridiculed. Yet throughout history, strong fathers, sometimes loud but often quiet, have held families, communities, and entire civilizations together. This podcast explores that quiet strength. Each episode brings together thoughtful conversations about fatherhood, responsibility, faith, forgiveness, and the challenges men face in raising the next generation. Some of these conversations are inspired by research, history, and emerging technology that helps us explore important new ideas in new ways. This is an independent production, built by people who believe that strong families and strong fathers still matter. As the show grows, we are always interested in connecting with organizations and partners who want to help us support meaningful conversations about fatherhood and legacy. But at the heart of every episode is a simple question. What does it mean to be a good father in a world that sometimes feels like it's falling apart? This is the Quiet Strength Podcast. Let's begin.
Welcome to another deep dive. Whether you're a new parent, a curious learner, or, someone just exploring your own history, you are in the right place.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really glad to be here for this one. It's an important topic.
It really is. I'm your host, and today we are taking a really hard look at a profound subject. We're exploring the long-term impacts of growing up fatherless on manhood.
Right, the psychological and societal weight of it.
Exactly. But more importantly, we are uncovering the roadmap for how men can grow to become excellent, emotionally intelligent fathers themselves.
Even if they
lacked a consistent role model father in their own childhood home. We want to know how you build that from scratch.
And we have a really compelling stack of sources for this mission today.
We do. We're pulling from some heavy academic research, including phenomenological studies and papers on neurobiology and intergenerational transmission.
Which I'll try to translate into plain English for us.
Please do. And we are layering that with psychological articles, some deeply personal essays, like Andrew Galisetti's Reflections, and finally, some raw, real-world advice from a Reddit thread on Raskman. Okay, let's unpack this.
It is a vast and layered subject. And to truly understand how a man navigates fatherhood without a map, we first have to, understand the terrain he grew up in.
Right.
Because the societal perception of a father's absence, it often minimizes the actual psychological toll it takes on a developing child.
That is something I noticed immediately in the materials. I mean, society so often throws around the term daddy issues like it's, a punchline in a sitcom.
Or just a casual insult.
Exactly. But when you look at the reality of millions of men who grew up without that presence, it's a massive foundational void.
It's not a joke at all.
No. So how do the academics actually define this outside of the pop culture tropes?
Well, the phenomenological studies in our sources, which, by the way, is really just an academic way of saying the researchers studied these men's direct lived experiences rather than just treating them as data points on a spreadsheet.
Right, talking to actual human beings.
Exactly. They define the daddy issue very specifically. They describe it as a deep lack of emotional and psychological balance.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's often accompanied by a depression of cognitive performance. It is all rooted in the experience of paternal absence, abandonment, or just apathy.
Apathy, yeah, that emotional absence, even if they are physically there.
Precisely. And what's fascinating here is how clearly this psychological imbalance is reflected in the broader societal data.
The stats were heavy.
Very heavy. For example, Psychology Today highlights that 71% of high school dropouts are fatherless.
71%.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a staggering majority.
Yeah.
It really makes you realize we aren't just talking about a kid missing a few backyard catch sessions.
Right. It's not a Norman Rockwell painting.
No, we are talking about a massive systemic vulnerability.
And that vulnerability extends straight into the justice system. That same source notes that 85% of youth in prison have an absent father.
85%?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whenever you hear numbers like that, it just completely reframes the conversation. It shifts it from a personal family tragedy to a public crisis.
It does. It really does. And perhaps the most chilling statistic they present is regarding physical safety.
Right.
Preschoolers who are not living with both of their biological parents are 40 times more likely to be sexually abused.
40 times.
40 times.
Hearing those numbers out loud is just incredibly heavy.
It's hard to process.
It is.
Yeah.
But it forces the question, right? What is actually happening beneath the surface here?
Why the drastic risk increase?
Exactly. Why does the absence of this one specific figure in a household lead to such drastically heightened risks across the board?
Well, the research from the American Journal of Qualitative Research, or AJQR, explains the neurobiological mechanics behind these vulnerabilities.
So it's a brain thing.
Yes. It is not merely a social or economic deficit. From infancy, a child's brain development relies heavily on what researchers call serve and return interpersonal relationships.
Wait, let me make sure I'm visualizing this correctly. Is that like a little game of tennis?
Basically, yes.
So the baby coos or cries, serving the ball,
Right.
and the parent responds with eye contact, a smile, or comfort returning it.
That is the perfect analogy. And the absence of a father disrupts this crucial dynamic. It essentially halves the amount of returns a child might receive.
Because there's only one parent there doing the work.
Exactly. And this chronic lack of paternal involvement actually impacts the brain's physical plasticity. Specifically, it affects the medial prefrontal cortex.
Okay, for you listening, think of that area of the brain as the control center. It regulates emotions, handles fear, and makes complex decisions.
Spot on. And due to the toxic stress of emotional deprivation, synaptic development in this area is literally altered.
Altered how?
The infant's brain is rewiring itself to survive an environment where a key protector and guide is simply missing.
So imagine you are a child navigating the world with that kind of neurobiological stress running in the background.
It's exhausting.
One of the psychological papers used a really evocative metaphor for this. They said it's like the "am I not good enough" tree takes root in your mind.
That's a powerful image.
It is. Every missed birthday, every empty chair at a school event, every time you see a friend with their dad, it's just water and sunlight for this profound feeling of inadequacy and rejection.
And those roots grow deep.
They really do. But childhood doesn't last forever. So how does a kid carrying around that kind of neurobiological stress actually cope when they reach their 20s or 30s?
They build armor.
Armor.
Yeah. There is a great piece from The Artful Parent in our sources that outlines these survival adaptations.
Right, the coping mechanisms.
Exactly. These habits are incredibly smart and necessary when you are a vulnerable kid, but they almost always outlive their usefulness in adulthood.
Because you're not in danger anymore.
Right. The most common adaptation is an extreme over-reliance on self-sufficiency.
That makes total sense. If you never had a man at home modeling healthy dependence or partnership, asking for help probably feels dangerous.
Vulnerable.
Yeah. You learn early on that if you want something done or if you need to be protected, you have to do it yourself.
Do it yourself becomes the ultimate survival code.
Yeah.
Another major adaptation is turning achievement into the sole measure of identity.
I saw that in the reading.
If a boy never receives that steady, unconditional baseline of approval from a father, he begins looking for proof of his worth in quantifiable metrics.
So grades, sports trophies, job titles, salary bumps.
Exactly. He is trying to earn the validation he never inherently received.
And the sources also talked about defaulting to usefulness. This one hit really hard for me.
The usefulness trap.
Yes. Instead of actually naming personal needs, a fatherless man might just become the most useful guy in the room.
He's the guy who will help everyone move.
Right. Fix their car, cover a shift at work. But if someone stops and asks what he needs,
And he just completely freezes.
he doesn't know how to answer.
Because answering requires vulnerability, which, as we discussed with the brain science, he has been wired to avoid.
Right.
But here's the deeper issue. Without a daily paternal model to teach them how to navigate their own needs and emotions, boys are still desperately looking for a template.
They still need a map.
They do. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this actually perfectly mirrors something called social learning theory.
Break that down for us. What does that mean in this context?
Well, the researchers in the Academic Commons study pointed out that humans are fundamentally mimics.
Monkey see, monkey do.
Pretty much. We learn complex behaviors through observation and imitation. So if a boy doesn't have a father in the living room to observe, he doesn't just stop looking for a role model.
You just look somewhere else.
He changes the channel, He looks out into the world to learn what manhood is supposed to look like.
So peers, the military, gang hierarchies.
Or heavily from the media and pop culture.
That drive to find substitutes produced some of the most poignant moments in those phenomenological interviews we reviewed.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm thinking of Armando. He talked extensively about immersing himself in comic books as a kid.
Right, the superheroes.
Yeah. And he wasn't just reading them for entertainment. Superman and Spider-Man were literally his surrogate moral compasses.
Because where else was he going to look?
Exactly. It was the only place he could observe what a good guy should do, how a man should stand up for the weak, or what moral responsibility looked like.
And we also saw the story of Jack.
Oh, Jack's story was heartbreaking.
It was. He admitted he used to secretly hide behind trees near a local lake to watch other boys fish with their dads.
Wow.
He was studying them from afar, just trying to absorb the body language, the tone of voice, the specific interaction of that relationship.
Taking mental notes.
Yes. It speaks to a deep, innate drive to figure out the masculine role.
But the templates they find out in the world aren't always as wholesome as comic book heroes or guys fishing on a lake.
Not at all. We have to consider the intense cultural context these boys are improvising within.
Right, the societal messaging.
The AJQR study, which focused on Trinidadian males, highlighted the intense pressure of stereotypical masculinity.
It's everywhere.
It is. Across many cultures, fatherless boys are uniquely targeted by societal messaging. They are constantly told to grow a spine or man up.
Or don't cry like a girl.
Exactly.
So they're constantly being told to be a man, but nobody's actually sitting down to show them how to do it in a healthy way.
Precisely. And without a father to model healthy emotional regulation, these cultural labels force young men to aggressively suppress their emotions just to fit the mold.
They equate emotional stoicism with safety.
Yes. And over time, this leads to massive internal conflict, isolation, and a lasting emotional deprivation that follows them right up to the doorstep of their own fatherhood.
Which brings us to the crux of the deep dive. Here's where it gets really interesting.
This is the turning point.
Yes. Because despite all of this, the altered neurobiology, the grim societal stats, the rigid cultural armor, this is absolutely not a predetermined tragedy.
Not at all.
The research introduces this incredible concept called resilient reintegration.
It's a great term.
It is. Many fatherless men don't just survive their past, they bounce forward and become truly phenomenal cycle-breaking fathers themselves.
And that shift from survival to resilient reintegration, it almost always starts with a conscious change in identity.
Like flipping a switch.
Exactly. Andrew Galacetti wrote a brilliant personal essay about the lessons he learned from growing up fatherless.
I loved his piece.
He makes a crucial distinction that frames this entire transition. He points out that biological reproduction simply makes man a father. It is just a biological fact.
But being a dad or a daddy is an entirely different category.
Completely different.
Galacetti argues that those titles must be earned. You don't get them by default just because of biology.
No, you don't.
They are earned through the daily grinding reality of providing financial, emotional, and mental support.
And that specific distinction is echoed profoundly in the academic interviews we looked at.
The light switch moments.
Yes, the researchers documented these light switch moments. These are instances where men experience a sudden, intense, almost overwhelming resolve to break the generational cycle.
Give an example of that.
Well, for some, the switch flips upon seeing their child's first ultrasound on the screen.
Just seeing that heartbeat.
Right. For others, it's the physical weight of actually holding their newborn in the delivery room.
It makes it real.
In that moment, they actively vow not to repeat the apathy or abandonment they suffered. And to do that, they adopt a very specific grounded mantra.
To be imperfect but present.
Imperfect but present.
I love that framing. Because the fear of messing up is paralyzing for guys who never had a blueprint.
They think one mistake will ruin their kid.
Exactly. But they realize they can build their own blueprint. Galacetti pointed out that a father figure doesn't even need to be your actual biological father.
You can piece it together.
Right. You can draw lessons from historical or public figures. He looked up to businessmen like Andrew Carnegie and Richard Branson.
Or inspirational figures like Chris Gardner and Randy Pausch.
You can find that figure in a community mentor, a high school basketball coach, or someone at your church.
You essentially piece together a mosaic of the dad you want to be from the best traits of the men around you.
The men in these studies realized that the primary role of a father is to be a teacher and a model.
Not a superhero.
No. There is a dangerous misconception that a father must be flawless, like this unshakable pillar of strength at all times.
But children don't learn from flawlessness.
They don't.
Yeah.
They learn from recovery. It is about providing a daily, observable model of how a man handles adversity when things go wrong.
How he respects others even when he is frustrated.
And how he honors his responsibilities when he is just flat out tired. It is the mundane, repetitive act of just showing up that teaches a child the most.
It's the consistency.
So what does this all mean? If you were a man who grew up without this model and you're staring down the barrel of fatherhood, how do you actually do this?
What's the practical application?
Right. What is the practical roadmap to get from that childhood void to being the dad your kid needs?
Well, the roadmap begins with the hardest work of all, developing emotional intelligence.
Which is not easy.
No, it's not. A therapist named Maggie McCain from Rehoboth Therapy emphasizes this heavily in our sources. To break the cycle of anger, disconnection, and emotional suppression that we talked about earlier, a father must do the internal work of recognizing his own emotional triggers.
Give us an example of what that actually looks like in practice.
Okay, it means pausing in the heat of the moment. When a father feels a sudden flash of anger because his toddler spilled juice or his teenager talked back, he has to ask himself a question.
What question?
Is this really anger, or is this my own unresolved fear of inadequacy flaring up?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it requires practicing active listening with children rather than just dictating orders from on high.
Right, the old because I said so routine.
Exactly. And crucially, it involves modeling for a son or daughter that vulnerability is not a weakness.
Like apologizing.
Yes. Apologizing to your child when you lose your temper is one of the most powerful displays of emotional intelligence a father can provide.
That is huge. Admitting you were wrong completely dismantles that old school authoritarian model of fatherhood.
It changes the whole dynamic.
And along with that internal psychological work, our sources gave us some incredibly practical boots on the ground advice.
The Reddit thread.
The Reddit thread. The guide by Jose Lopez and the men over on the Raskman community really spelled out the messy realities of this. We have to spend some time here because this is where the theory hits the pavement.
Let's do it.
First, and this was universally emphasized on the forums Love the Baby and Help the Mom from day one.
Because the first 18 months are notoriously difficult.
Brutal. The thread was full of guys talking about the sheer exhaustion of it.
It's a physical test.
It is 3 a.m. feedings when you have to be at work at 7 a.m. It's dealing with blowout diapers that somehow defy the laws of physics.
Oh, yeah.
It's pacing the hallway with a screaming infant who refuses to sleep while you're operating on 2 hours of rest.
But the consensus was clear.
Do not shy away from this fate.
Right. Do not leave it all to the mother.
Leaning into that grueling, unglamorous work is what builds an unshakable foundation with the child.
That is where the neurobiological serve and return we talked about is established.
It is the crucible where the bond is forged.
And engaging equally in that early labor sends a profound message to the mother of the child, showing deep respect for her physical and emotional recovery.
Which perfectly aligns with the second major takeaway from the roadmap. Be an example of how a man should respect women.
That was a huge theme. A fatherless man has to consciously define authentic masculinity by his actions because he knows the toxic alternatives all too well.
Kids pick up on everything.
Children are incredibly observant. They watch how a father uses his masculine strength.
Right.
The roadmap requires a man to demonstrate that strength is a tool to protect, uplift, and serve those who are physically weaker.
It is never a tool to intimidate, control, or harm.
Never. A boy learns how to treat his future partners by watching how his father treats his mother.
And a girl learns what she should expect from men by that exact same metric.
Exactly. The stakes are so high there.
They really are. And that brings us to the third point from the real-world advice, which actually challenges an old cliche.
The parent versus friend debate.
Right. We have all heard the advice, I'm your parent, not your friend. But the modern consensus from these cycle breakers is actually to be a parent and a friend.
Because the authoritarian model creates distance.
Too much distance.
Balancing authority with genuine companionship is far more effective. A child needs boundaries and discipline, yes, but they also need someone who will sit on the floor and build Lego towers with them.
Or listen to them talk about a video game for 20 minutes straight.
Right. If you aren't their friend when they are 7, they aren't going to come to you with their real problems when they are 17.
That makes perfect sense. And finally, the roadmap emphasizes exposure and safety in failure. Expose your kids to everything.
Broaden their horizons.
Take them to an art museum, then take them to a baseball game, then try a robotics kit, then read them classic literature. Let them explore a massive variety of interests.
And most importantly, be the one who supports them when they fail.
Yes, that is the antithesis of the "am I not good enough" tree we discussed earlier.
When a child strikes out in baseball or fails a math test, and their father responds with unconditional support rather than withdrawal or disappointment.
The child learns that their worth is not tied to their achievement.
Exactly. You pick them up, dust them off, and take them out for ice cream anyway.
You decouple love from performance.
Those actions, the late-night feedings, the modeled respect, the safe environment for failure, those are the building blocks of a completely new family legacy.
It's rewriting the script.
It is. But this raises an important question.
What's that?
To truly execute this roadmap over a lifetime, what must the fatherless man do about the ghost of his own past?
Ah, that is the elephant in the room, isn't it?
It is.
You can do all the right things for your kid, but if you are still carrying around a mountain of resentment toward the man who abandoned you, it is going to leak out eventually.
The phenomenological research indicates exactly that. For a fatherless man to be truly free to love his children without the shadow of the past, he must practice profound self-compassion.
He has to forgive himself first.
He has to forgive himself for the survival habits he developed, and ultimately he must find a way to emotional closure regarding his own absent father.
That's a tall order.
It's the hardest part. One participant in the study, a man named Malcolm, phrased this realization beautifully. He said that forgiving his father was not a concession, but an expansion.
Not a concession, but an expansion.
Isn't that powerful?
That is incredible. He isn't saying his father's absence was okay or letting him off the hook.
Not at all.
He is saying that letting go of the anger literally expands his own internal capacity to love his children.
Precisely. If we look at the entire journey we have charted today, the overarching message from all these diverse sources is one of immense hope.
It really is.
The data is clear. A man is absolutely not doomed by his family of origin.
The void of fatherlessness has heavy neurobiological and psychological impacts, yes.
And it shapes survival habits that require serious effort to unlearn.
But through resilience, the development of emotional intelligence, and conscious daily choices, a fatherless boy can become an extraordinary dad.
He can be the one to break the cycle.
It reminds us that there is always more to learn. Seeking multiple perspectives, studying different models of manhood, and questioning our own assumptions are the tools that make us better guides for the next generation.
The willingness to learn is what turns a cycle of absence into a legacy of presence. And knowing that makes all the research worth it.
That is a perfect summary of the mission today. For you listening, I want you to take a moment and think about your own life. Reflect on the mentors, the coaches, or the unexpected figures who stepped in when you needed guidance.
The people who built your mosaic.
Exactly. Think about how you define manhood today, and consider how you navigate your own emotional landscape when things get stressful. It is an ongoing daily process of self-discovery and course correction.
It never really ends.
It doesn't. And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. We talked a lot today about fathers living vicariously through their children, trying to give them the backyard baseball games, the stability, and the unconditional hugs that they desperately missed out on themselves. But what if the very act of fathering, of holding a child when they cry, of teaching them patience, of showing up day after day without fail, what if that is actually the ultimate mechanism for a man to reparent his own wounded inner child? What if breaking the generational cycle of fatherlessness isn't just about saving the son or the daughter, but is actually the final profound step in healing the father himself?
That's a beautiful way to look at it.
Something for you to mull over.
Yeah.
Till next time.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. For more information or to become a sponsor, please go to our website at www.newberryfilmworks.com. We'll get right back to you. Stay tuned for the next episode, coming up very, very soon.